I had a topic on my list for a little while that I wanted to talk about, and I thought I'd do it today because something reminded me about it at work, and it's something that I know affects so many people, and I'm hoping that people will watch this video and they'll realise that it's quite common, and they'll realise, they'll hear some of themselves in it, and it might make a difference for them, as it will hopefully make a difference for me. The subject, as you would have known from the title, is imposter syndrome, which is to say the feeling that you don't belong in a environment that you're in, that you haven't earned the right to be there, that you're an imposter in the situation that you put yourself in. So, as an example for me, very recently I took on a new job at work where I'm basically in charge of writing the company's bids, building relationships with other companies, taking their big documents, the big legal things, or the things where they say, oh, we want to achieve this, and I have to go through it, and I have to establish whether we can do it, how we're going to do it, what we're going to do, whether we meet the loopholes they want us to jump through, whether we meet the legalities, whatever. I've got to decide, and then I've got to fill it in. And I asked if I could go on a course about it after I'd been doing it for a couple of months, and I got sent on this course, and I expected in my mind, I'd expected to go along and be surrounded by all these geniuses who knew it inside out, and I was going to feel like an absolute muppet, and they were going to ask me a question, and I was convinced that they were going to say, like, you, what is blah blah blah, and I was just going to go and just run out the door or jump out the window or something crazy. When I got in there, he said, right, we're going to start off with the basics. We're going to cover them off for maybe 4 hours of the 8 hours we're in here, and then we'll get into the real nitty gritty. He went around the room, he spoke about it. Everyone implied they're in these jobs that, again, made me feel like I just didn't belong there. None of the job titles sounded like mine. None of them sounded like the scenarios I was in. It just didn't sound right. And then he got down to it, and for 6 hours I sat there thinking, geez, like, yeah, that's pretty basic stuff. I know that. I've read that. I've done that. We've been doing that since the beginning. I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought that was a given. He got to like the last 2 hours, and I'm sure I might have covered this off slightly before, but he went through some helpful bits that I made notes on. But I left thinking, hang on a minute, I knew all of that. And when I was sat there at the end and he was going through it with people, they're all there asking questions, and I realised out of the 10 or so people that were in the room with me, I was the only one who knew the stuff. Everyone else was completely new to it. They just weren't as worried about whether they were an imposter or not. They just got on with it. That's something that's always been there with me, no matter what. I worked out when I was on my degree, I was convinced that I didn't know what I was doing, that I didn't belong there, that I didn't know IT. I was worried that I didn't do it at GCSE or A level, that I wouldn't be able to do the course. I massively over pushed it, trying hard to catch up, and then realised within 3 months, if that there was no catching up to be had. It was actually quite straightforward. I think the stress and pushing myself through that meant that I felt actually quite good when I was there. But even then, even though I knew I was good at it and all that stuff, I still didn't use it at the end. When I got to the end of uni, I know people who did my course who went from that degree to go and do programming jobs, and have been doing them for the past 6 years, and they're all professional programmers now, and they do it for a living, and they know it inside out. I know guys I work with, again, who are doing the same degree or have just finished the same degree, and they program for a living at my place of work, and I know that I can program as well as them, but I haven't for years now. I haven't got the practice in place, but I always thought, there'll be no jobs in it. I won't be able to find work in it. It'll be too hard. All of this. I'm not really a programmer. I'm not good at it. I'm not like these guys. I was chatting to one of the guys, and he says that they still just pretty much everyone I know who's ever been a programmer or is a programmer says that most of their job is just Googling it or looking it up on the Stack Overflow and stuff like that. And that was all I ever did in my assignments. I'd research how to do it. I'd read people's thoughts. I'd learn from other people. I'd take their code and I'd twist it to do what I wanted it to do. But I always felt like I was basically cheating. And it turns out that's all you're supposed to do. Programming is just hacking at other people's ideas and codes. And if you can't do it and no one's ever done it before, then you start a forum thread and everyone starts debating over how to do it. But eventually, inevitably, someone's always done something else that you want to do. So again, I feel like that's something where if I'd have just stopped worrying about whether I was an imposter, I could have done it. It goes on and on like that. When I was a teacher, I felt like everyone else was a genius and they knew their subjects inside out, and I was an imposter again. I remember having a conversation with a group of language teachers, and they were all talking about how I know 4 languages. I can speak German, French, English, and Spanish, and all of this. And they went on and on like this, all debating, and I thought, oh my God, this is terrible. And then I suddenly thought, as I was leaving, on my way home, I suddenly thought, I know like 15 programming languages, like whatever it was. I can't remember the exact number. It was like, but I also know databases. I also know this, that, the other. And I felt like going back to them and going, you only know 4 languages. Like, I know how to do all these things with a computer. And I remember sitting down with the deputy head, and she was saying, out of all the teachers they have, they considered me to be one of the highest subject knowledge they had in the whole place. Like, they just considered my subject knowledge to be, in the top sort of couple of people. And that was really mind-blowing, because again, I felt like, I don't know, it's like, I just nodded along. I was thinking, that's not true. You've completely misunderstood. You don't know what you're saying. But actually, I mean, IT is something that I've always found quite natural to. So again, I should own that, really. I don't do anything that uses that skill anymore. I mean, other than little things like recording and putting it on the internet, which doesn't really need an IT degree. Working on office-based stuff at work. I understand the technologies we sell slightly better because of my IT degree, but it's weird thinking that I just haven't used it. I'm out of practice with it. That's my problem. I'm not an imposter. I'm out of practice, or I don't forge it more. I don't learn it. So it's interesting looking at it, because again, there's things that I do regularly and people consider as experts in it, but I don't feel like an expert in it. And I'm trying to remind myself, I'm trying to like click in my head. One basic one that billions do every day is parenting. And I think to myself, I'm not saying I'm a bad parent. I don't think I'm a bad parent. I think I'm a learning parent. I think I still consider myself a new parent, even though I've been doing it for 9 years, plus nearly 10 years. But when I've got friends who have kids for the first time, or are thinking of having kids, or have just had a kid, they come to me and they ask me questions, and I'm like, don't worry about that. That's normal, that's fine. And you sort of think every parent must feel like an imposter. There's some who obviously act like they know everything and they built these plans out or whatever, but it's weird to think that when people ask me, I'm like, oh no, actually that is fine. I have learned a lot by practice, and it all is just normal, and you don't realise what you've done with it. That's a little bit basic, but I think every parent feels like an imposter, and it's quite funny thinking that you're not. It's just getting on with life and making sure they don't kill themselves or eat something they shouldn't eat, or roll out of a window, and just mad stuff like that. It is just basically making sure they don't do 3 things. And I basically explained it to my mate as either they're hungry, they need changing, or they need sleep. And it's just always those 3 things until they're older. And then it's probably still that most of the time. I mean, Lampup's either hungry, tired, or I don't. She doesn't need the toilet. That's a bit different, but hungry, tired, or bored with a 9-year-old, I suppose. As long as you entertain them, feed them, or let them sleep, that's all pretty much there is to it. The other one, the one that's more me specific, and I was thinking about with the MGPX and being invited to do the EGX show and everything, is the thought that even though we've been podcasting for 6 and a bit years now, it still feels like we're just a bunch of knuckleheads sitting around in our various kitchens chatting over the internet and all of that. But actually, again, people will come to me and go, how do I set it up? How do I get into the iTunes charts? How do I stream it? How do I do live stuff? How do I get an audience? How do I do the social network side of it? How do I get, maintain a place in the charts? And we try and give advice to people, and so many people have tried to do it. And I know so many people who've sat and created a podcast and released it and announced to the world they were doing this whole thing. And then, it hasn't gone quite to plan because they've not had the routine or whatever. But I could set them up easily. Some bits I'd still need to probably ask Kev about, or I'd need to remind myself of, because some of them I kind of plug and forget, and that's it for the whole 6 years. We've got like connections to iTunes that we just move around if we need to. But I can't believe I still feel like an imposter with that, because we submitted the podcast for this award and won, and got like unlimited hosting for the rest of time because of they liked what we did. We've been invited to do this live show at EGX that we looked at doing because they know us and they know that we do a decent show. We used to sell space at pubs and people would come and watch us talk, but we've never kind of gone beyond that. And it's like, I don't know why. I think it's because we just assumed, or I definitely just assumed, people like listening to us, but we're still just these amateur little kind of losers or whatever. it's a bit of a personal faith thing, but it is just feeling like an imposter. It's like, okay, we're not. I don't know. I'm trying to think of examples of people have talked. We're not Rooster Teeth. We're not Yogscast or whatever. We're not any of those people. So we're imposters. When actually we've been going nearly as long as most of them, if not longer in some cases. We've just never gone that extra pecking, up the pecking order, trying to force it. We've never tried to push it beyond what we currently do, and it's like, maybe we should have done, but I just never really felt like we could. The point of this for me, the reason I made notes on this and thought about it, is that's my problem with two things at the moment: my writing and my YouTube stuff. Because I definitely feel like an imposter with the whole YouTube thing. I feel like I've just got a camera and started waffling because Kev basically forced me that one day when I wrote a blog about how I wanted to do more with stuff. He's basically said to me, start filming, start talking, and get on with it. So even though I've done it for 160 something videos now, I still feel like a massive poser, a massive imposter, a massive kind of bandwagon jumper just for hopping into it. And it seems mental that, I've done it for nearly half a year. Over half. I can't even do the maths. It's over half a year, nearly half a year, around that point. I'm not a maths magician. I'm nearly at half a year's worth. And yeah, it's like, I don't know. I guess at some point it will stop feeling like an impostery type thing. I'm starting to think about little things I can do to improve. I've even started to look at emptying my garage and just setting up my PC in there and setting up chairs in there and just opening and closing the garage door, which the idea of doing that a couple of months back just seemed idiotic to me. Now I'm starting to think if I just set up in there, it might be a bit more set up nicely so I can just do it all properly and have a bit of alone time. Because I think the faff in the house yesterday was making me fret about all that. But I feel like over time it's got more legitimate, considering I was sat there with an iPad in my hand just staring at it talking, and I watched some of my old videos the other day and I thought, oh my god, when I used to do hello and welcome to Sheepdog Says number 31, and I was really robotic, and I know that if in 100 episodes time, if I look back, I'd be like, oh god, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe that's how I was acting. I can't believe I was sat with a lamp in my face with all this other stuff going on. But I know that with practice it gets better and better and better. And the ideas come as you go and that sort of thing. And that's what I'm thinking with writing as well. I need to just keep doing it, and I don't. I keep kind of jumping away from it. People say to me, get on with it, do it, get on the writing. And I do a lot of writing at work. I do a lot of writing kind of around everything. People rely on me to word things, and they're all telling me I'm good at it, but I've got this kind of imposter syndrome again, where I'm like, right, if I write something, it's going to be stupid, so I'm not going to do it because people will just be like, ugh, what an idiot. When no one's going to think that, because everyone's too busy looking at their own stuff. But imposter syndrome is a proper, mind-ruining thing. Every phrase I could think of then had a swear word in it, and I was trying to get past all the swear word ones to say the one I meant to say, but they just ruin you for having the confidence to do things. Because I know if I just sat and wrote, the first things would be pretty rubbish, but I'd send them off and I'd get them back and I'd tweak them. I keep mentioning it in passing, but I've sat down with this lady from Chester and we've written out an entire first episode and subsequent episodes in frames, and then we've written the first one as a proper one, and we've edited it, and I can't even say that quick, but we've edited it, and we're planning on sending it off to someone. And I know that they're just going to throw it back at us and go but I know that we can keep doing that, and I want to get into the habit of doing that, because eventually they'll be like, that is right, let's go, and that'll be really exciting. But I need to be doing that for my other stuff, because that's something that if I'd sat and done it, I could have finished it months ago. I've not procrastinated. I've just felt like an imposter. I felt like a moron who, if I send it to someone, they're just going to go, don't ever write to me again. But even if they did say that, it's not the end of the world. And it's been fun writing it. And it's been enjoyable seeing her reaction when she says to me, I want to write about this. And I've written back going, well, okay, your idea didn't really go as far as I wanted to, so I've added these twists in. What do you think? And she's like, whoa, that's brilliant. And at this point, I'm thinking everything I've written, she's really happy with. I'm still looking it through and thinking, and I was telling my colleague about it, that every time I read it, I'm like, it's just not quite. And she's just like, look, good is better than perfect is the enemy of good, or whatever the phrase is. She's used that. People who use that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it out. And yeah, I think imposter syndrome has been just holding me back on that. It's a very horrible, difficult thing, and I don't really know the answer, because 1,000,001 people, and this isn't me calling out going I want people to chant at me or something. It's just a matter of, it's a horrible, weird thing, and I guess if you're experiencing the same, I'm telling you to just do it. but I'm a hypocrite who doesn't listen to his own advice. And I guess for me, it'll just be a matter of I'll either just wake up one day and do it and be like, oh, I'm glad I did that. I should have done it ages ago. Or I'll just keep procrastinating until I'm a withered old man, regretting all the times I procrastinated. And then Lamp Up and Bosco can sell all my hard work as part of my estate and become billionaires like the Tolkien family did. That took a dark twist at the end there. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Let me know your things you've been working on, that you've been procrastinating on, times you feel like an imposter, where you are an expert but you don't feel it. You know, I know people who are brilliant at stuff. In my mind's eye of what people do, everyone's awesome at stuff. I've got a friend who does promos for Sky and he's amazing at it, and I bet there's times when he feels like an imposter, even though I've seen all of his work and it is ridiculously good. Every time there's a promo on that he's done, you can almost tell it was him, because he's got this like twist of what he does with it. And you know, it's not reinventing the wheel half the time, but it's just clever and right, and he's good at it. But I know that he would have always felt like he wasn't quite at it and that kind of thing. Using Kevin as an example, he's about to break 100,000 followers across both of his channels, 100,000 subs, and he still thinks it's mad, and he's kind of just winging it and learning. He reads a lot, and that's something I need to do as well, read a lot about the topic I want to get involved in, but I kind of don't. I pick it up as I go. I learn by mistakes and that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm waffling a little bit now. I am going to wrap it up. Subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff. Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear from people about your things, as I say. Sorry for the ramble, but again, it's something I wanted to get out really and think about, and that's probably my favourite part of doing this, just getting my thoughts straightened out and understanding my own barriers or whatever, because then when I walk away I think that is really a pointless thing to hold yourself up about, and it is. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and cheers.